But the challenge was, how would I present that? How would I give bedrock, solid, good information, and yet let people really have an understanding, what would Jesus really do if he were in the 21st century, as I was thinking by that time, and doing it? So what I looked at were, what were the successful books of the time? And I saw that they went one of two different ways. Either they were gigantic metaphors, like the 1-minute manager, and so somebody's going to tell you a big story. I have this guy and he's training people and you have to learn from that. Or they were things like outliers, where they were just solid, heavy research, giving you solid facts, telling you about what life is like contemporary and why is it that way and how do you respond to that. Well, I got thinking, what if somebody, me, blended those two? What if you got a book that had solid teaching in it on time management and on money management and on goal setting and on life perspectives, but you actually incorporated a fictional work, an entire novella, broken into segments so that what you're teaching in the nonfiction could be exemplified by having Jesus running a corporation in the 21st century, in the flesh, on earth today. So I sat down and I wrote an opening vignette. And I'd always wanted to use this great line, Jesus Christ walked into Decker's Bar and Grill. Because I always thought if he were on earth today, that's where he'd be. He'd be working with AIDS patients. He'd be helping people, who are drug addicts. He'd be visiting people who were the homeless and that. And so it was a great opening line to kind of shock people. But it was a scene that I wanted to bring in there. And when I finished it, I thought, no, this works. This really works. Because I am a short story writer too, and I thought, this is great. So then I tried to say, what could I do so that the reader who knows the Bible would say, I know where you're going with that. I know exactly what story you're drawing up, which I would say, great, because what you're saying is what happened 2,100 years ago is totally applicable today. And yet, if I could infuse some humor in it and have some fun with it, and showing that Jesus had wit and he had surprise along with that, the readers would say, I got to keep turning pages. This is fun to read.
This book, as I read it, I have never read a book like this before because it has the parables and it has the vignettes. It has your voice and it has the research that you've done as a researcher, and it also has the biblical references. There's 4 different aspects. I was not prepared for all 4. I wasn't even prepared for 3. I was prepared for a parable about Jesus. What does this fit into? What do you call this kind of book?
I had to create a term for it. I called it a fact-vella. When I went to market it, that was one of the great problems I had with it. I was sending it out to publishers who appreciated my writing and liked it, but they were coming back to me and saying, what is this? This isn't fish or fowl. Why don't you take out all the nonfiction and just give us a novel? Just beef it up and do a novel. I said, you're missing the point. The vignettes exemplify how the reality can happen of the theory. Then the others would come back and they'd say, throw out all that fiction stuff and just write one of your solid nonfiction books and maybe attach a workbook on the end. I said, you're not getting it. People love stories. They love stories. They learn by stories. They like to be entertained by that. And the book was coming back to me and I was getting very frustrated. I thought, I can't believe this isn't succeeding, because editors are always telling you, give me something fresh, give me something new, give me something different. The problem is that many of the publishing houses have been swallowed up by big corporations, and they're run by bean counters. And the accountants like to go with what has been tried and true. They're nervous about trying something new. So after about 8 or 9 rejections, I was saying to my wife, I think I've lost it. Here I thought I wrote the best book of my life, and nobody understands what it is. And she said, here's your problem. You're sending it to accountants. You're sending it to executives. You need to send it to editors who are writers themselves. Only writers know what readers want. And I thought, my gosh, I think she's really right. So I called a literary agent friend of mine, Chip McGregor, and I said, look, I'm going to overnight this book to you. You tell me if I'm way off the mark or something, because I think this is really solid. He said, okay, I'll be honest with you. 4 days later, he called back. He said, I've been laughing so hard. He said, I can't even stand it. He said, this book is not just a good educational book. It's funny. It's entertaining. It's so witty. He said, yeah. He said, let me handle that. So he sent it to 5 corporations, to publishing houses, where the editors themselves were writers. They understood what readers were looking for, something fresh and all that. And he opened a bidding war for it. They held an auction, and the top bidder was AMG Publishers, and they came out with it, and they really got excited. Their only worry was, they said, this is so clever. We don't know if you could do a sequel. Can you keep this thing up or not? And I said, oh, I've got other ideas. They said, show us. So I had to write 3 more vignettes that were coming out for the sequel that will come out next year. And they said, okay, you can maintain this. This is good. Will you come up with some good ideas?